This video contains spoilers for Final Fantasy XIV, A Realm Reborn, Stormblood, and Endwalker. In a sparring arena in Ul'Dah, deep in the city's heart, sword and board clash with iron knuckles. The pugilist twists her body aside as she steps forward, narrowly dodging the lightning-fast blade of the gladiator, and delivers a counterblow only just stopped by her opponent's shield. The gladiator steps back, regains his footing before he is sent sprawled across the arena floor, and forces his opponent away with a quick sweep. They retreat, reassess, and raise their weapons before beginning the dance anew. In a day's time, they will face each other in the Colosseum, cheered on by a crowd hungry for their blood. Not far from the arena, the goldsmith sits back, loosening the knots in his shoulders while he examines the puppet-like device before him, a mammoth, as the Eorzeans would call it. It is not a gaze of smug self-satisfaction, but a critical eye tracing over every ilm of his new creation with the slightest of imperfections and blemishes. He raises his lapidary's hammer one more time and gently smooths out a subtle bump in the gold filigree. From there, go east past the Milvaneth Sacrarium and you will find the Weaver, patiently listening to her wealthy client ramble about a gala he must attend that eve. From the man's torrent of words, she discerns his mood and tastes, and deftly suggests a gown of altered wool, dyed wine red to match the dress of his wife, and the man cries out with joy. Surely, he proclaims, as the Weaver helps him don the outfit, he will be the talk of the evening with such a fine garment. It is a perfect fit. Traverse the stairs of the hustings strip, and let your feet carry you to the Scholar's Walk. Within the halls of Frondale's Frontistery, one of the foremost houses of healing in Eorzea, you will find the alchemist stooped over an alembic as he watches a dark liquid drip into a waiting vessel. The process is slow, agonizingly so, yet he does not blink or let his mind wander. A single misstep here could ruin days of work. Once the process is complete, he fastidiously records his findings in his notes before carrying on with another procedure. In a moon's time, the elixir of his invention will treat yet another malign disease in the Frontistery. Go to the city's Aetheryte Plaza and walk south past the gate of the Sultana. There, at the Arzaneth ossuary, the air grows still, voices hushed as the supplicants, mourners, and soon-to-be-dead conduct their business under the watchful gaze of a statue of Thal. Nearby, tucked away near a pile of books, the thaumaturge pores over dusty tomes, their pages overflowing with arcane knowledge. He focuses on the rites regarding the proper care for the bodies of the dead, but from time to time his thoughts stray to sealed tomes containing secrets of a far darker nature. Oh, the powers he could unlock if he could read just one page, no, just one line. And far beyond the city's walls, there is the miner. Deep within the bowels of the earth, she raises her pickaxe and brings it down on a speck of green amidst a sea of grays and browns. Lifting the chunk of loosened stone towards the lamplight, her examination confirms her suspicions, a lump of precious malachite, destined to be wrought into a trinket most valuable by the goldsmiths. She wipes her brow, takes a swig of water, and returns to work, resting assured in the knowledge that her fellows dug the tunnel with her safety in mind. Three of the cities of Eorzea, Ul'Dah, Gridania, and Limsa-Lominsa, rely upon a curious institution, the Guild. In the view of outsiders, they initially appear to be formal associations of artisans, mages, and martial artists, where those trained in a certain discipline might meet with fellow practitioners of the art and trade tales and techniques. Look further, however, and you will find that the guilds are more than mere commercial enterprises or social gatherings. They are the face of industries at the beating heart of a nation, shaping the city's destinies while being shaped in turn by their history and cultures. The Conjurer's Guild of Gridania is not merely a school for the shaping of nature magics, though that is part of its purpose, and the Miners' Guild of Ul'Dah does more than simply cut ore and gems out of the earth. The Guilds of Eorzea regulate vital portions of the realm's economies, ensure the survival of hard-won knowledge, preserve ancient traditions, and safeguard the future by training aspirants at the guild's own expense. Some even say that the vaunted Warrior of Light once graced the halls of these institutions. To know a guild is to know an important piece of Eorzea. To be part of one is to shape the path it will tread. So, I will tell you the tale of the Guilds of Eorzea. Let us begin with those of Ul'Dah. Gladiators stand for a martial tradition nearly as ancient as Ul'Dah itself. Armed with a single-handed sword in one hand and a sturdy shield in the other, these redoubtable fighters blend stout defense with elegant swordplay, and many wield these skills in Ul'Dah's fighting arenas to win glory and riches. In the olden days of Belladia, the city from which Ul'Dah and its hated twin Sildee were born, swords were a symbol of the Sultan's sworn elites, the Paladins, brave men and women at arms charged with the very life and safety of the throne. Thus, only those who were part of that illustrious band were permitted to carry a blade. However, when Belladia split apart into Ul'Dah and Sildee and the two sister cities fell to war, concerns of class gave way to concerns of victory. Ul'Dah and Sildee scrabbled to press every man or woman capable of wielding a weapon into their service, and from Kirabanya and Abalathia's spine came scores of Highlander Hure and Hellsguard Rogadin mercenaries. When many of them arrived with swords, the cities could hardly afford to turn them away or arrest them for breaches of decorum. By the time the war drew to a close, the proverbial horsebird had fled the metaphorical stables. Swords had now become a common tool of war amongst common peoples. Once these swords proliferated throughout Ul'Dah, their wielders sought to test one another in contests of skill. Informal bouts became duels, and the most spectacular among them no doubt drew onlookers. Some years later, this grew into the gladiatorial tradition that Ul'Dah is famed for. The status of those who participated in some of these bouts appears to have fluctuated as time went by. At first, only captured enemies and condemned criminals were cast onto the blood sands to die for the city's amusement, but more and more free men and women willingly stood in the arena, blade and shield in their fists, and defiance on their lips. The tradition culminated in the Ul Cup when the first Sultan of Ul'Dah invited sword masters from across the realm to his city that they might duel his elite guard. No longer simple contests of skill, these prestigious tournaments drew enormous crowds, and soon enough, the famous Colosseum of Ul'Dah was built to house these games. However, a bitter truth came to light as traditions formed and combatants of the arena came and went. It was not an easy life. True, those skilled enough, or lucky enough, to stand as champions of the Colosseum could win lives of wealth and luxury. We need only examine the legendary Rauban Alden to see how high success in the arena can take a man, he who earned a seat at the Syndicate's table with his Colosseum winnings by seizing victory again and again on the arena sands. But for every Rauban Alden, there were dozens, hundreds of men and women who would earn only modest success at best. For these less fortunate fighters, a bad wound could end a promising career, and old age could mean no more gladiatorial winnings to earn their next meal. It was for the sake of such former contestants that the guild came to be formed, a sort of mutual support by gladiators for their fellow gladiators. Nowadays, the Gladiators Guild is housed near the Colosseum in which they ply their bloody trade. They train newcomers in the art of the sword and board, instilling in their minds the importance of swordplay as well as defense with the shield, and prepare them for future endeavors whether they wish to win glory in the arena or pursue further fortunes as adventurers and sellswords. At times, they also provide able fighters in matters of Ul'Dah security, such as defending against raids by bandits. As of late, a contingent of them have even volunteered to assist with the Eorzean Alliance's affairs in Garlemald, and a home guard remained behind to defend the city against assaults by the Telepharoi's twisted creations. Mila Swordsong is the current guild mistress, having succeeded her father in that position. The first sword of the Gladiators Guild is a sword mistress renowned across the realm, and a capable leader, despite having earned the mantle at a relatively young age, though perhaps her youth was barely an obstacle, given that she was steeped in the sword arts since the tender age of 5. They say that she has become distracted as of late, casting glances at the entrance doors of the guild, perhaps looking for someone's return. Bawdy tavern rumors say that she waits lovelorn for her beloved, though any who broaches the subject are quick to meet her sharp words and sharper sword. Pugilism is an Ul'Dah martial art that eschews all weapons save for, perhaps, knuckles of metal or bone, and sometimes foregoing even that. A skilled pugilist is a blur of punches and kicks, raining blows upon their opponents with such speed that their limbs cast no shadows as they move. The Pugilist's Guild has similar origins as that of the Gladiators, having also arisen from the bloody sands of Ul'Dah's fighting arenas. Long has humanity practiced the art of fist and foot, and never sought to hone those techniques, so its appearance in the Colosseum alongside those armed with blades was hardly surprising. At first, such unarmed combatants were simply lumped in with those wielding swords and axes, all training together and obeying the same orders from the Lannistae. As the years passed, however, those who fought with bare hands and knuckles became separated from blade-wielding fighters, carving their own identity with their hard-won unarmed might. The first gatherings of these brawlers was, much like their gladiator cousins, little more than methods of offering mutual aid between fighters who bore the same burdens. But one day came a woman named Cornelia, who was not satisfied with mere victory. No, what she desired above all else was absolute perfection of the bladeless dance. She trained relentlessly and would fight any in the arena who accepted her challenges, be they a bearer of the sword or wearer of hard steel, and she crushed them all underfoot one by one. So inspiring was she that aspirants from all across the realm came to Ul'Dah to learn at her feet, each contributing their own insights and styles. As more and more disciples came to Ul'Dah and swelled the pugilist ranks, so too did the art of Ul'Dah pugilism grow, becoming a style that blended the strengths of countless disciplines from far and wide. Centuries later, some 50 years before the present day, the tireless efforts of these combatants would be rewarded with a new guild. Cornelia's legacy would be enshrined in the new guild hall, for the guild's training facilities were a mirror to Cornelia's own, and Ul'Dah pugilism lays its foundations on Cornelia's signature style. These days, the Pugilists Guild sends many of their number to the Colosseum when they are not offering security services at the Platinum Mirage gambling house. Their purpose there is not, as it might seem, to keep out ne'er-do-wells, so much as ensuring that the wealthy clientele of the Mirage do not cheat the establishment. No doubt many a gambler, his coffers outsized only by his greed for more winnings, took one look at the calloused knuckles of a nearby pugilist and thought better of himself. The current guild master is a man named Hammond. In his youth, he was a legend of the Colosseum, earning the title of Holy Fist time and time again with his flurry of fists and kicks. These days, he appears content to leave much of guild business to his Lalafellan apprentices, in favor of wooing the svelte dancing girls of Ul'Dah, the march of time having worn down his prowess like mark of a river on stone. Though, rumors run wild regarding his recent trouncing of the infamous Wickfar Wide Axe, which might suggest that time has yet to slow the Holy Fist for now. Thaumaturges are practitioners of a magical discipline that descends from a previous era, one that is perhaps the most destructive among the common Eorzean schools of magic. Their foremost weapons are the Icy Blizzard, the Furious Flame, and the Bolt of Lightning, though these mages also serve more spiritual roles as keepers of Ul'Dah's dead, using their arts to ensure that a body is kept fit for funerary rites in honor of Thal. Thus is the guild seated in the Arzaneth ossuary near the gate of the Sultana, where they study their magics and offer funerary services. The art of thaumaturgy is a direct descendant of the dark sorcery of Mach, that city of black magery from the 5th era more than 16 centuries past. After the 6th Umbral calamity that saw the realm drowned in a torrent of water, those few Machi mages who survived sought to preserve their people's knowledge as much as they could, even as other survivors, rightly blaming the abuse of magic for the catastrophe, hunted down any who would wield the arcane arts. Once these mages founded Balladia, they entrusted their arcane secrets to the Order of Nald Thal, who in turn kept the sparks of black magic alive by disguising their arts as funerary rituals. Ice to cool the body and to stave off decay, flame to cleanse it of corruption, and lightning to purge the sins of the deceased. These rituals were honed over time until they became the Ul'Dah thaumaturgy of today. A core principle of thaumaturgy is placing one's eternal reserves of ether in either an astral or umbral state. When the scale of a thaumaturge's own ether tips towards astral, the potency of their spells becomes greater, their flames hotter, their ice colder, their lightning tearing the very air asunder. Yet, just as a greater fire devours fuel at a greater pace, so too does an astrally aligned thaumaturge deplete their aether reserves more quickly, leaving them bereft of proverbial ammunition for the further casting of spells. This the thaumaturge ameliorates by tipping the scales of their ether towards the umbral aspect. By doing so, they reduce the amount of ether they must expend to cast their spells, oftentimes even restoring that ether, albeit at the cost of weakening their power until they can tip their ether back towards astral once more. Thus is thaumaturgy a sort of cycle of waxing and waning, where the tides of the mage's power flows during this so-called astral phase until they are bereft of magical fuel, then ebbs away as they replenish that ether during the umbral phase, then flows again by beginning the astral phase once more. Despite their key role in the worship of Nald Thal, however, thaumaturges have a sort of dread reputation in Ul'Dah. In part, this is due to the destructive nature of their sorcery. Unlike Gridanian conjury or the Arcanema of the Southern Sea Isles, thaumaturgy offers little in the way of succor, healing, or protection, instead focusing almost entirely on raining death and obliteration upon their foes from a distance. It does not help that the current guild masters seem to enjoy cultivating a sinister image while in public. There are also unsavory rumors regarding the more forbidden magics of the guild. The thaumaturge's forebears, the Black Mages of Mach, did not merely deal in elemental destruction, but were also said to have been the masters of summoning foul creatures from beyond and binding them to their will. The precise details of such dark rituals are unclear, and guild members are more liable to quietly boast about having sealed such knowledge away than admit to their practice. But one wonders how much of Mach's legacy, tucked away in proscribed tomes and kept under lock and key, is practiced behind closed doors. Indeed, more than a century past, the thaumaturge Kukuruka Tataruka was found guilty of practicing forbidden sorceries and was sentenced to a life behind bars in the Marasaja pit for his crimes. What foul magics did he pursue? What other secrets lie within the well-guarded libraries of the guild? The current guild masters of the Thaumaturgist Guild are 5 of the Lolobuki brothers: Kokobuki, Kokobigo, Kokobani, Kokobezi, and Kokoboha, in order of oldest to youngest. They are an eccentric lot, though their prowess is undeniable, called upon by the immortal flames in times of war, and even having played a key role in the liberation of Alamigo. Nor can their virtue be questioned, no matter their odd mannerisms. The brothers earned their seat as guildmasters when their predecessor, Mumuepo, attempted to bar common Ul'Dah citizens from taking refuge in the Arzaneth ossuary during the 7th Calamity. Where Mumuepo concerned himself with preserving sacred texts and treasures, and even ordered his guards to slaughter the terrified citizenry, the Lolobuki brothers instead stood firmly by Sultana Nanamo's side as she stepped into the half-ruined city to calm her people. For their noble deeds, they were awarded the seat of Guildmaster that was once occupied by the disgraced Mumuepo once the man was stripped of his honors. The art of goldsmithing arose as a natural consequence of Thanalan's earthly bounty. Thanalan has long been blessed with a great deal of mineral wealth, in particular the precious metals of copper, gold, and silver, as well as gems. Thus, once its people unearthed these treasures, it was inevitable that they would master the techniques required to shape them into beautiful and useful things. Ul'Dah's goldsmithing industry would truly take flight when the city itself arose to mercantile prominence during the reign of House Thorn. As the city's people grew wealthier, demands for luxuries such as jewelry rose higher, and the skills of the goldsmiths grew greater in kind. There was one atelier at the time named Estame's Lapidaries. As popular as it was, the store was not content to simply peddle trinkets to the local rich with well-worn techniques. Instead, they looked east, beckoning the masters there to come to Ul'Dah and share their hard-won foreign knowledge with the city. The new wares so produced took the Ul'Dah fashion world by storm, raising the goldsmithing art to new heights. In time, Estame's Lapidaries formed the foundation of today's Goldsmiths Guild, and these days, Estame's Aesthetics continue to sell its legendary wares to those fortunate enough to be able to afford them. Goldsmiths do not, however, limit their toil to mere baubles. Scepters, rings, and amulets are vital for the safe and efficient channeling of ether, and many an Eorzean mage braves the harsh Thanalan sun to purchase equipment in Ul'Dah made by its goldsmiths. Academics, too, submit commissions to the guild, as etherically sensitive instruments must be fashioned by a master of the goldsmithing art. Perhaps the pinnacle of the goldsmith's achievement is the mammoth. These are mechanical beings not dissimilar to the karakuri puppets of Kugane, with the most advanced ones capable of speech and even, it would seem, complex thought. They say that mammoth laborers do pioneering work in the Ciodales Islands to Limsolominsa's south, raising buildings, harvesting crops, and rearing animals in exchange for payment like any ordinary mortal would. The first of Ul'Dah's mammoths, named Nejing, was invented in the year 1466 of the 6th era. The current guild mistress of the Goldsmiths Guild is Serendipity, a young woman 19 years of age. One of the youngest guild masters in the city's history, it is said that she begged and hounded her predecessor for apprenticeship, until the man at last gave in, and in a scant 6 years or less she polished her skills into that of a true master of the craft. The art of weaving, too, is no less a colossus in the realm of Eorzean fashion, and no place in the realm has perfected the weaver's art as the guild in Ul'Dah. Where the goldsmith's jewelry arose from a desire for luxury, the weaver's cloth arose from necessity since the earliest days of humanity's ventures into Thanalan. I do not speak in jest when I say that the Thanalan sun is merciless, even fatal to the unprepared and unfortunate. In such climes, travel wear that is light, breathable, and capable of warding off the sun's beating glare, yet paradoxically able to keep its wearer warm in the strangely cold desert nights, is nearly as vital as a full water skin. If humanity is unified in one thing, however, it is that we as a species have a bottomless appetite for fashion, be it for the flowing kimono of Doma and Kugane, or for the heavy coats of Cold Ishgard and the meticulously cut leatherware of Gridania. So too are Uldans. Those with coin ever seek to display their stations and aspirations with fine clothing. Thus, as Uldah's tastes shifted from necessities to luxuries, its weavers heeded the city's demands. It is a bitter irony, then, that Uldah's rise as a mercantile power nearly spelled disaster for its native artisans of cloth. Where the goldsmiths prospered from trade with the Near East, the weavers were met with near extinction. Cheap fabrics imported from Thavnir flooded Uldah's markets, and the city's weavers simply could not hope to compete in price. Their one hope was in banding together and elevating Thanalan's weaving techniques to new heights. If they could not compete against Radzatan in quantity, they would compete in quality. In this, they succeeded beyond imagination. After recovering from being pushed to the very brink, the weavers of Ul'Dah would be the ones exporting their goods to the east. It was through this union born of necessity that the Weavers' Guild would rise. The current guild master is Redolent Rose, whose 27 years of age belie tremendous skill, for it was by his hand that the pink ceremonial gown of Sultana Nanamo Ul'Namo was made. He also, to my eyes, bears uncanny resemblance to an enigmatic figure who frequents the entertainment halls of the Gold Saucer, a certain masked Rose who oversees fashion competitions there, though the latter insists there is no connection between him and the Guildmaster. Alchemy in Eorzea has had a less exalted history than weaving and goldsmithing. We Domans might have the impression, thanks to Radzatan, that alchemy is simply a field of study that relies on the careful measurement and blending of substances to create wondrous effects, ultimately no different than any other subject of academia. Eorzean alchemy today is much the same, but in its earliest days, the discipline had a far more sinister reputation. In those days, the true goal of an alchemist was not in the creation of curative elixirs, but the transmutation of base metals into far more valuable silver and gold. Alchemical theory proposed the existence of a mystical medium called the Philosopher's Stone, which could not only perform such miraculous transmutations, but also grant eternal life. It was in search of this stone that the alchemists of old conducted many an experiment that were doubtful in both efficacy and in ethics, though they also accumulated much medical knowledge as they walked this dubious path. It was not their hard-won medical skills that the public at large recognized, however, but the strange and dark experiments they conducted. Alchemists thus gained a reputation for lunacy, tainting their discipline by association, and for a while the field of alchemy languished as an art for madmen. In another time, perhaps that would have been the fate of all alchemists. Their skills unrecognized, their expertise scorned, their discipline forgotten, reviled, even banned, and their practitioners hunted as criminals. The prestigious Frondale Frontistery in Ul'Dah, however, understood the value in the byproducts of alchemy, those potions and elixirs invented by happenstance on the uncertain journey towards the Philosopher's Stone. The Frontistery integrated alchemical practices into their arsenal of medicines, and when the alchemists of Eorzea heard of the refuge they could find in Thanalan, they flocked there, where they could at last pursue their research without fear of persecution. From there, like-minded alchemists shared their findings with one another, and this fellowship was the soil from which the Alchemists' Guild of today did spring. They would prove their true worth when they created a cure for the devastating outbreak of creeping death that savaged the hero population of neighboring Gridania. The guild master of the alchemists is Severian Lictor, the scion of a reputable Ul'Dah family who was encouraged to study the alchemical arts from a young age. They say the young man took to the field like fish unto water, though it is also common knowledge in the city that his passion for alchemy has since turned into obsession, with the guildmaster spending many a night not in his bed, but upon a mattress of discarded parchment in his laboratorium. I have spoken at length in this tale and others of Thanalan's great mineral wealth and its role in ensuring the fullness of Ul'Dah's coffers, but whence came these riches of the earth? The answer is the miners of Ul'Dah, and it is the Miners Guild that ensures that this backbreaking and oft-times dangerous work is performed as safely as possible. The mining practices of Ul'Dah today were born from the mad mithril rush, sparked by the discovery of a fresh vein of that valuable ore some 150 years ago in Thanalan. News of this great find spread wide and far, and soon enough, many a miner and would-be miner came to Ul'Dah to seek their fortunes, though a great many of these new workers brought little with them but the clothes on their backs and pockets full of dreams. Such inexperienced folk, in a faraway land with little coin to their name, no others to rely on, and possessed a few skills or valuable equipment, are readily exploitable by those with the desire and the means to do so. And exploited they were. It was not long until working conditions in Ul'Dah's mines decayed into pits of horror. The laborers had no option but to work in lightless tunnels, forced to perform backbreaking labor for little pay or else starve. Many had perished, surely, in these dark times, whether due to illness, starvation, or mining accidents, but the profession has ever been dangerous, even at the best of days. Cave-ins, pockets of noxious or even deadly fumes, a lack of breathable air. One can only imagine the brutalities that these stalwart workers endured as their masters grew fat from unfair labor contracts of questionable legality. It was to defend their own against such working conditions that these laborers banded together, in time coalescing into the Miners Guild. These days, the Guild strives to ensure that the deplorable working conditions of the Mad Rush never return, and they do so by teaching aspiring miners safe mining techniques, advocating for mine safety, and safeguarding Thanalan's natural resources and beauty against unchecked mining. It serves as a powerful countervailing force against the immense wealth and influence of Ul'Dah's mining concerns. That said, grumbling miners complain over their cups that the Amajina and Sons mineral concern often pressures the guild into performing dangerous work, in exchange for the right to hold the guild's headquarters on the concern's property. The guild mistress is Adalberta Stern, born of humble origins as a young Alamican refugee fleeing Garlean oppression. Her father eked out a living as a miner in Ul'Dah, with guild mistress Stern following in her father's footsteps. She works tirelessly to train new guild members, safeguarding them against the brutal exploitation that saw the birth of the guild itself. Thus are the Guilds of Ul'Dah. Each has their own storied history, each is a reflection of the city's values and character while being touched by those values and characters in return. They are one of the beating hearts of the founding members of the Eorzean Alliance, ensuring their city's prosperity in the here and now while safeguarding and nurturing future members of the guilds. In so doing, they forge productive, honorable members of society out of aspirants, and those seeking their own path in life. I myself have tried my own hand at alchemy in hopes of one day crafting my own grimoires and books, though for every bottle of purified water I make, I seem to produce 10 bottles of unspeakably foul sludge. I pray that Guildmaster Lictor takes no notice of my wastage of guild supplies. But with continued effort and study under the watchful eye of the guild, perhaps even a clumsy fool such as myself can learn a thing or two, and cast my own share of coins into the proverbial coffers of Eorzea.